military operation of World War II in Europe. And while Franklin Roosevelt was planning the D-Day invasion and other tactical victories in World War II, President Roosevelt was designing what would become the United Nations, the institution he hoped would be the preserver of peace worldwide after the war. Franklin Roosevelt did not live long enough to see the opening of the United Nations in 1946, and the term leader of the free world was not widely applied to American presidents until the Cold War era, when the United States and the Soviet Union, led by a Russian dictator, were locked into a decades-long standoff with nuclear weapons aimed at each other 24 hours a day. The free world was easily identified as the countries who elected their leaders in free and fair elections. The cruel dictatorships, like the Soviet Union and China, who had been our allies during World War II, represented the other side of the Cold War. Those adversarial positions held even after the Cold War thawed. But now Donald Trump, for the first time in American history, has become the president who is changing sides in the middle of a war. The last leader to do that, the last head of state to do that, was Adolf Hitler in World War II, when he suddenly and intemperately, to say the least, after conquering Poland and France and other countries, turned and attacked his ally, the Soviet Union. No other European country has ever done that, which is why, after Donald Trump's incoherent, raging performance in the Oval Office on Friday, European leaders embraced President Zelensky in London this weekend, vowing to continue to support Ukraine against a murderous Russian dictator war criminal in every way they can. While Donald Trump was yelling in the Oval Office Friday, the war criminal Vladimir Putin was firing missiles and drones into Ukraine all day long. Ukraine on Friday didn't fire a single shot. Across the Russian border into Russia, not one shot. And so the President of the United States is no longer the leader of the free world or even a defender of the free world. The free world has rallied around the leader who, though struggling with a language barrier, tried to cut through Donald Trump's lies in the Oval Office on Friday. President Volodymyr Zelensky might never be called the leader of the free world, but he is, without a doubt, the bravest leader in the free world. Leading off our discussion tonight is Democratic Senator Mark Kelly of Arizona. He is a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee and the Senate Intelligence Committee. Senator, thank you very much for joining us tonight. I want to, first of all, get your reaction to what happened in the Oval Office on Friday.
Well, I met with Zelensky before that. We had a great meeting. Cameras were out of the room. What I saw in the Oval Office was what feels like a setup, and where Donald Trump and J.D. Vance feel like they're demonstrating a certain amount of strength. What they really showed the American people and the rest of the world was weakness, abandoning our ally at their most needed time. I mean, this war has gone on now for 3 years. It does need to end. But it doesn't need to end by the United States of America switching sides. That is a mistake. I don't think Donald Trump understands, or I don't even think he has the capacity to understand what he just did. But this was a colossal error, and if it is not corrected, I think it's going to haunt our country for decades.
And also, tonight's news that they are, as they put it, the Trump White House puts it, pausing all aid to Ukraine. What happens next?
Well, what happens next is more Ukrainians die. That means more women, more children, more old people. They're not going to be able to fight off attacks from the Russians without the security assistance that we give them. I've been to Ukraine a couple times. I know J.D. Vance hasn't. Donald Trump hasn't. My colleagues on both sides of the aisle, many of us have. I met with folks in Patriot batteries who every single night are shooting down cruise missiles and ballistic missiles from the Russians. If they don't get help from us, those missiles get through. Putin targets schools and hospitals to try to intentionally kill civilians. This decision tonight by the White House means more innocent Ukrainians will die.
Can Europe rally now to a point where it can replace, to some extent, the American aid?
Hard to replace us. You talked about how we're the leader of the free world. We have been since FDR. I think we've been even before that. And I don't think Donald Trump understands leadership. He doesn't understand FDR or Churchill. He doesn't understand history. Can the Europeans step up? It
With
looks
your
like they're
trick
going to try
ass.
to. But without our leadership, without our assistance, this is very, very hard for the Ukrainians. And by the way, it gets easy for Russia. This is what Russia wants.
Explain the trick,
The
though.
Kremlin just today, Lawrence, said that this was largely their vision. This is what they wanted. They now have Donald Trump, J.D. Vance, and I guess to some extent Elon Musk on their side.
How many times have you heard President Zelensky say thank you?
It seems like every other sentence. Yeah, he did on Friday in our meeting. He has a habit of saying thank you to the American people. Thank you to Congress. Thank you to this president. Thank you to Joe Biden. I don't think I've ever met somebody that is more appreciative than Zelensky. I mean, he understands that how much help we are giving them. He gets it. And without it, his country doesn't survive. And if we don't get back in there and give them the assistance that they need, Russia is going to win this thing. And make no mistake, Putin wants to put back the Soviet Union, put it all back together, and he'll pick his next target.
Do you think there's any hope of Republican senators taking any action here?
Well, Lisa Murkowski stood up and said, put out a strong statement the other day. I think there is some hope. However, especially after this election, many of my Republican colleagues have unfortunately fallen in line, and they will parrot whatever Donald Trump says. If he changes his opinion on something, if he switches sides in a conflict, many of them will just get in line right behind him. And that's really unfortunate. And the consequence of all this, Lawrence, is that as a country, we are less safe. As an individual here in the United States, you are less safe, your family is less safe, our future is less safe.
The ultimate guide to ATV and UTV tires. If you own an ATV or UTV, choosing the right tires can be a bit challenging. There are various tire types and sizes available in the market, but which ones are suitable for your vehicle? In this comprehensive guide by Priority Tire, we cover everything you need to know about ATV and UTV tires. From tire sizes and tread design to inner structures and terrain applications, we've got you covered. Find the perfect ATV and UTV tires for you on Priority Tire.
Hurry in for your free 3D design. Save up to 40%. And start enjoying your new dream kitchen for as low as $143 per month.
Get more wow for less at Cabinets to Go. Breaking news coming in. Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau speaking right now after the U.S. left Canada with 25% tariffs. Let's listen.
So today, the United States launched a trade war against Canada. Their closest partner and ally, their closest friend. At the same time, they're talking about working positively with Russia, appeasing Vladimir Putin, a lying, murderous dictator. Make that make sense. Canadians are reasonable, and we are polite, but we will not back down from a fight. not when our country and the well-being of everyone in it is at stake. At the moment, the US tariffs came into effect in the early hours of this morning, and so did the Canadian response. Canada will be implementing 25% tariffs against $155 billion worth of American goods, starting with tariffs on $30 billion worth of goods immediately, and tariffs on the remaining $125 billion of American products in 21 days' time. Should these tariffs not cease, we are in active and ongoing discussions with provinces and territories to pursue several non-tariff measures. Measures which will demonstrate that there
So I
are
had my
no
hand.